Hello guys, my name is Sanches and welcome to my podcast Sanches Talks. And today I have an unusual episode, and although initially when I planned to make such podcasts I imagined it in this mode. Today we will listen to the record and discuss it in some way like a reaction to something musical, right in the process of listening. Like a reaction video, but it's audio. So today we listen to the vinyl records of the Norwegian band, which I love much, Royksopp, and the vinyl record is called Melody AM. This is their debut album, which was released in 2001, and in 2021, to celebrate the 20th anniversary, the band re-released it on double vinyl. It turned out to be such a denser vinyl, I guess, 2 discs to make it sound better. At the same time, the main design of the album was repeated. Fonts, pictures, everything as it was in the original album booklet. I don't remember if this album was released on the vinyl at the time, and if it came out, then probably in a very limited quantity. And now you can find it only on I guess on eBay for some crazy money. But honestly, I don't even want to try to search for this. But as far as I know, this 20th anniversary reissue is also limited. The envelope is numbered, which means a limited number of released records. The number indicates the total amount of 8,000, and specifically my record is numbered 4,057. Somewhere in the middle of the pack is my album, I guess. 8,000 is not so much, in my opinion, especially for such a popular project or group. It was gifted to me for a new year, and the person who gave it to me said that it was not difficult for him to do it. This means that with such a small circulation, they did not buy it very quickly, and although it seemed that it with such a circulation would not reach all the corners of the world, but nevertheless it reached me, and I'm very pleased with the gift. And in general, I'm very pleased with this release. I'm glad to have it in my collection. I love Royksopp project very much, and I know them from the very first album, the very first single, the very beginning. When the first singles from it came out, I fell in love with them instantly and began to follow them, buy their albums, singles, download them in any way, legally or illegally. You understand, when you love an artist and their music very much, when you're attracted to them, you are looking for all possible ways to get music or opportunities to buy it or even download. Or, for example, trade it when you exchange digital versions of albums or singles or individual tracks with other collectors. That is, you almost sometimes persuade another person to share with you the music you need, and in return you also offer something valuable and worthwhile. Well, actually, that's all, such a protracted introductory word, but in the meantime, the disc number 1 is already playing in the background. And the first track, So Easy, is an instrumental track, an introductory one, which is built on a sample. The original track, Blue on Blue, was originally written by Bart Bacharach and performed by Bobby Winton in the 60s. I don't even know who it is, but the original came from their Royksopp especially used the sample from the Swedish band Gals and Pals for the album, I guess so. They apparently covered this track, and it was their version that the Norwegian guys heard. Then in the 60s, it was a kind of a standard and common thing when many different artists cover one song. Why not cover this Swedish group as well? Moreover, samples of such songs from the 60s add lightness and melodiousness to modern music. So here, with the first track, you are given some lightness, and as it were, they say, for the next 40 minutes, you will listen to something calm, melodic, and, chill. The mood of midday calm, or vice versa, the silence of the earliest hour of the morning, you are instantly in a relaxed mood. Perhaps you are now having lunch or a snack. You are relaxing in a park, moving in a train or plane, lying on a sun lounger, maybe drinking something. Track So Easy is playing in your headphones and you immediately get into the mood. Immediately catch yourself, yeah, that's it, for sure. And so you begin to perceive the album further, slow, calm, melodic. But now the next track we can hear is Porlino. Interesting thing that before the Porlino had started, we can hear the introduction for the track Apple, but then, surprise, surprise, Porlino is coming. It is more energetic, more danceable. In my opinion, it also retains evenness, melody and slight sadness. It does not disturb our peace, but gives new shades. Although, of course, if you cut it to the maximum, it will, I guess, blow you well, because it also cannot be a calm one. I was always wondering who's the song is about, who this Lino is, why he can hide, why he can't run away, but he always be found, as we hear in the song. What kind of person is this Lino is? There is a very cute video for this song, and if you haven't seen it, I recommend to watch it. In the video, there is an incomprehensible little man in a teddy bear costume, or maybe it was a teddy bear in real. He had the same looking girlfriend as a teddy bear, and so he lived, enjoyed, ran through the forest, through the snow, rejoiced, and suddenly one day a helicopter arrives and takes him away. And then it is shown at the zoo, and there was a touching moment when this teddy bear, either in the window of the helicopter or in the window of the cell already, I don't remember, breathed on the glass and wrote the word help, or HELP letters with his finger. Only the opposite, but only the opposite is mirrored. And I love it so much that it also did it in the windows of the frozen buses when I got home late at night. I thought it was cute and touching. I like sometimes to leave such symbols, signs, something like this. Maybe they are useless and no one will notice them, or maybe someone will see a dark meaning in this. But anyway, it was kind of a fine moment. And in the meantime, while we were discussing the teddy bear, the first side of the record, of the first record, ended, and in a moment we will continue. And while I turn the record on the other side, please do not turn off. Okay, so let's continue. Under the noise of my steps to the microphone, I'm sorry. So listen to the second side of the first album. This is both the joy and the pain of music lovers, one or two tracks on each side, you know. Yes, it is clear that the best sound quality on the record requires space, which is not a lot of music will not fit on one side, you know. But you have to constantly approach to the player and somehow devote a lot of time for your vinyl recording. Well, perhaps that's the beauty of the vinyl recordings. That's ritualization, you know, to kind of get more traction to your record. It's not a CD, you have to do more than just insert a disc. You turn on the turntable, you wipe the record, you put in the stylus, you try not to interfere so that the sound is even. Perhaps this ritualization fascinates collectors, and I guess me too. Now, we listen to the track number 3, Apple, which seems to be translated as apple, as far as I know, from the Norwegian. Why an apple? Please do not ask. No one will answer you. It was their most played and downloadable hit, although for me such a hyped hit was Porlino, not this. It was from this track that I started listening to Royksopp. Here I heard them on the radio, so the video, for me it all started with this song, but not the Apple. But nevertheless, in the European charts it was Apple that became a big hit, and whenever Royksopp performs, it is on this track that the most vivid reaction on the public can be seen. I've been to Royksopp concerts, I think, 3 times. Yes, 3 times. The first time it was in Moscow at the Green Theater, and Annelie Drecker was the vocalist. The second time happened in the same venue, but the vocalist was Yona Lee, a member of the I Am I Who Am I project, if you know this. For the third time, I was at their concert in Moscow as well, but in the new venue, Stadium Music Hall, with the same Yona Lee as vocalist. I remember that at the second concert there was a heavy downpour rain. It ended just before the Norwegians entered the stage. My friends and I waited it out next to the concert at the store drinking light alcohol. And it turns out that there, before Royksopp's Sister Bliss, a half of the Fateless project, worked as an opening act. And of course, many of them got soaked under, many of the visitors, many of the people got soaked under her set. The site was open, as I mentioned, like a summer amphitheater, and there was no place to escape. But then, well, Royksopp, of course, worked out with a bang, but with no rain at all. Now, we have already listened to a few tracks, but I would like to tell you about who Royksopp is. Royksopp is a Norwegian duo of 2 DJs, which was formed back in 1996 during the so-called Bergen wave. Bergen is a city in Norway, the second or third largest, I don't remember exactly. In the late 90s, it quickly began to gain fame as the Scandinavian epicenter of electronic music. Many interesting electronic projects, informal, alternative music were formed and implemented there. So the guys from Royksopp once joined there as well. Before that, they had a history with another project called Aidena Cycle. The guys were part of this project, managed to release several tracks, singles with musician Geir Hansen. Working with him, the guys learned studio tricks, some mechanics, as well as sampling and mastering. There they also learned live performances. More precisely, at first it was DJ sets, in which the guys put on their own music and mixed it with some samples. With this experience, they decided to start their own project, signed a contract in Bergen with a small local label Telle, and released their first single, So Easy, which also started today's album. The label was founded around at the same time, and since its founder Mikael Telle was friend with Royksopp, he was the first to invite them to his label. At some point, they were noticed by the British label Wall of Sound, which quickly offered them a full-fledged contract for the release of albums and singles, and already in 2000 the group released their first proper international single. And then their first album came out. It was actively promoted by music TV channels and radio. Their tracks were often added to dance compilations. In the fall of 2001, the group even went on their first tour as the support act for Moby in European countries. I remember when I bought their album, it was imported. It wasn't a local copy, and it was expensive. There was a sticker on the case with an advertisement for the tour and to buy tickets. We already hear the fourth track from the album called In Space, and it also contains a sample. Oh, no, I was wrong, sorry. No samples here were used here. This is some other track that I wanted to talk about. The guys decided to name their project Royksopp, a rain mushroom, a puffball, quite unexpectedly. If you press on it, it releases a cloud of dust. It's like mushroom spores. But of course everyone is sure that they mean hallucinogenic mushrooms, although they are quite edible, and as a child I even liked to eat them fried, really. It is under this name that the world knows the guys to this day, although more than 20 years have passed. And here we are, finishing the second side of the first record, which runs quite fast, I guess. And we have reached the middle of the album already. We'll start listening to the next side in a moment, and don't turn away and keep enjoying this quite sporadic episode. Okay, let's continue our journey and listen to the first side of the second disc. The second part of this anniversary edition. This is the track number 5, A Higher Place. And here it is, a sample from the track Freedom by Tyrell Corporation. I haven't heard the original, but I know that the band Tyrell Corporation took their name from the 1982 movie Blade Runner. It may be worth listening to them and finding something interesting for yourself. It is always useful to find out the original tracks, where the samples are taken from. This way you can discover new music, new performers. I wanted to tell you that on the first half of the album we can hear both female and male vocals. The female vocals belong to the Norwegian singer Anneli Drecker. She's quite popular in her country, but her voice is also familiar in Europe. She was also a backing vocalist for the band a-ha. She participated in their Minor Earth Major Sky and Lifelines tour as well, and her voice can be heard on their recordings of that times. With the guys of Royksopp, Anneli also toured a lot. Her vocals can also be heard on the albums Junior and The Understanding. Recently, as far as I know, Anneli has moved away from music and is taking care of her family. And Royksopp began to work actively with another vocalist, Susanne Sandflor. I don't know where she's from, maybe also from Norway. I really like her voice, it suits well. I think that it's good that they have her on their records. Also, the guys involved, the vocalist Yona Lee, as I said previously, to work. I already managed to mention her a little earlier. I also really like her project, her own project, I Am I Who Am I, and I will definitely talk about it in my next podcast. I have to do this, and I strongly recommend it to you if you haven't heard it. It sounds very close to Royksopp. I Am I Who Am I, and her vocalist Yona Lee. In general, Scandinavian electronic music of the early 2000s is very interesting and deserves attention. In general, it is interesting that many projects of that time sounded very melodic, but at the same time cool and melancholy. It was not cheerful and happy music, there is more nostalgia and mysticism here. And I think this is due to the fact that since the late 90s and the early 2000s, the New Age theme has become very popular. Similar longing and sadness can be heard in trance projects like Chicane or ATB, and I was always impressed by this dancing melancholy, but for a long time I couldn't understand it, accept it in myself or something. Why do I like exactly what is there in these notes and voices? Maybe it's a matter of structure. You know how it happens. You listen to something rhythmic, the same type, similar. Your brain begins to predict what will happen next. The brain links out a melody, a voice, or even a sample. But if you break this structure by at least one note for 1 second, then the brain stops thinking and starts turning on attention, and now you're already listening thoroughly to the music, trying to guess a new mode or a tone or a note. This is a trick many musicians use to get you into listening projects, so to speak. And I think Royksopp is also one of them. And moreover, both with music and with clips, and in general with the design of their releases, a lot of some kind of understatements, symbols, riddles, a lot of questions we got. You watch their clips, you watch their videos, and constantly ask yourself, what is it? Why is this there? What to look? Where to look? Or when you listen to a music, you kind of accept a melody and suddenly it changes dramatically, breaks down, and you get perplexed. And this is a very cool trick, which it seems to me attracts a huge number of people or fans and makes them dive into their own creativity. In my humble opinion, this is a very cool approach when you do not write simple and predictable, but try to create something structured, complex, with hidden meanings, elements, unpredictable. Do something different, special, but attention-grabbing. Their albums cannot be listened to and understood at once. You return to them again and again, discover new layers, new sounds, thoughts. You go back to the albums again and again. There is definitely a special pleasure in this. It's the same with the Royksopp concerts. For their performances, they greatly alter, reshape their tracks, sometimes beyond recognition. And you will need some time to realize what song are you hearing until you hear familiar lines or familiar sounds or samples. And this is a very good approach, also attracting people to concerts, I guess. And now we listen to the track number 6, Royksopp's Night Out. I've always been surprised by the title of this song, because you usually expect something fun, funky, party-like. The title of this track is like the name of some incredible party, but instead you hear some kind of a scary, mystical pop opera with strange, creepy violence, beaten rhythms and incomprehensible sounds, which are more suitable for the soundtrack of some thriller, I guess. Such something gloomy, as if you are walking along some gloomy dark alleys. But Royksopp's universe has always been different, like from another planet, and what they call a joyful party may well be some kind of a scary tale. What seems simple and familiar to us, they see with their distorted eyes, their distorted imagination. Somewhere in one interview, I read how one of the participants, Sven, says about Poor Lina track that it is a nice lullaby, in his opinion, and if he had children, they would sing it. He would sing for them. Cool lullaby, you know. Poor Lina, anywhere you go, I'll find you. It's not bad before going to bed, I guess. Immerse yourself into the fantasy of a stalker. Now, returning to our track, I want to add that at their first concerts, Royksopp liked to put this track at the beginning of the set list. Apparently to create a mood, but at the same time, the track itself is 2 or even 3 tracks in structure, combined in one. The mood and rhythm of the track changes several times. The track themselves sound for about 7 minutes, I guess, yes. Sometimes it can sound even longer at concerts. The whole story in one track, can you imagine? And especially towards the end of the track, the anxiety intensifies. The strings seem to pounce on you. Although, I repeat, by the name of the track, it seems that there should be fun, but anxiety is growing on you. Very unusual track, unusual structure, very. And of course, I recommend finding a live performance of this track, especially from the first concerts like in 2001 and 2002. Then they performed very often at festivals, and these performances were very often recorded on video or audio, and there is an opportunity to see it in a good quality, like somewhere on YouTube. Live, this one sounds more intense, and it's interesting to see the reaction of the public. Interestingly, Royksopp also hires a bass player or a lead guitarist for their concerts, and he apparently allows you to dilute the synthesizer sound a little, make some tracks livelier, add some emotions, I guess. Well, all the more hands are not enough to reproduce all the sounds on the synthesizers and drum machine, you know. And just for the track Royksopp's Night Out, they use the bass player who adds an interesting structure to the track. And I don't know if they use live musicians these days or have switched completely to synths. I have to watch their recent performances on YouTube, I guess. But their music has become more synthetic these days, so maybe they don't need live players anymore. It seems to me that the strings that sound in this track were taken from some movie, but I took at my hint, and no samples are indicated for this track, which means that this is all their work. It's just an incredible. And now the track came to an end, and with it the first side of the second disc. Now we continue to listen to the album as we have the last side, but before that we have some few minutes to fade out. Yes, I guess that's it. Okay, so now we continue to listen to the album, and we have the last side, the fourth side, or the second side of the second record. Oh my gosh. The party starts with my favorite track on this album, Reminds Me. Here on the album, the track sounds more calm and soft, a slightly beat down beat, if I may say so, or if it's correct. But in the video for this song and in the concerts, the band always used the remix. Faster, more poppy, more rhythmic and energetic. I wonder why it happened, this difference. On the track we hear the vocals of Erland Toye. He's the lead singer and one half of the project Kings of Convenience, a famous Norwegian guitar duo. Their music can often be heard on all sorts of chill-out music compilations. He also participated in several other projects thanks to his pleasant, calm and slightly distant vocals and even manner of the performance. He will rather calm you down. I personally like his vocals in that sense. Since I don't know what Erland looks like for a long time, I didn't know much about this duo at all. And already when Royksopp began to dig into the work, of course, I also studied these guys, and I was so surprised that they look like nerds. Excuse me, but really like nerds, like students from some university. Not at all like from a show business. For some reason, it seems to me that the vocalist of such a band like a King of Convenience should look somehow more glamorous. There is absolutely nothing wrong with looking like a nerd, of course, no. But anyway, this is just my humble amazement at how often we imagine one thing, but the reality is completely different. I really like the video for this song, which is built in the form of diagrams, charts, tables, and graphs. And the clip tells about the life of an ordinary person in a big city, but through the eyes of statistics, marketers, psychologists, and economists, and generally anyone. There's a girl. The girl wakes up, washes herself, goes down the subway, goes to work, and all this is accompanied by the graphs and diagrams, like from a presentations like a PowerPoint. For example, how many people in the world brush their teeth, or who drinks coffee more often, male or female, which subway is the longest, and so on. I don't know why, but I like such visual statistics. For some reason, I'm fascinated by viewing it, and it looks for me, this type of videos, satisfaction videos. It's kind of a satisfaction feeling. While you're watching these videos. So I really like it. Strongly recommend for you to watch it if you haven't. And we have the next track, and it's called She's So. Oh, so this beginning, I'm kind of lost my words. This track contains a sample from another track, Love in Space, by Peter Thomas Sound Orchestra project. And this is a very beautiful, very interesting track. I also would recommend you to find the original. These are very beautiful ambient tracks of this orchestra, lingering with instruments like a saxophone, a bit strange. It gets with some strange structure, but a very bewitching. I like it. As if unusual, a new attempt, you can consider it as unusual new attempt to write classical music. And it's nice that Royksopp decided to also include this track, as if trying to create new classical music. I like this track. It's a little nostalgic for me, if there's such a word. A little nostalgic, yeah, I guess that is. I hear this track and immediately before my eyes there's a lake in a forest appears, where I like to go for walks as a child. The lake was abandoned, it was deserted there, especially in autumn or winter, very lifeless. It's a weird place for a teenager, I especially like to come there in the evening when it gets dark, black, gloomy tops of trees like silhouettes in the skies, the smell of dampness and cold, silence and calmness, absence of any motion and slight fear. I immediately remember all this while I hear this track, such as passing moment before the nightlife, like a moment. Maybe even this track is perfect for sex, I guess. I know that there are people who don't like to listen to any music during sex, and in general they don't like to listen to music in the background while doing anything. But for me, I always listen to music when I fall asleep, when I wake up, when I go to work, or when I eat. I just don't listen. I don't listen music only in the bathroom, but it seems that this also can be fixed, I guess. However, I know people who like even to have sex with military marches. I know that. But I guess Royksopp's music still would be better to do this. So enough with sex, I guess, especially such a beautiful floating music. Oh, let's say listen to it not while walking by the lake, but in flight. In flight, where when you look into the window, or maybe even a hot air balloon. Can you imagine this experience? I can't. I've honestly never flown in a hot air balloon. I'm afraid. I have a very strange fear of heights. I'm not afraid to stand on a balcony of some 50s or 60s floor of the building, some like Burj Khalifa in Dubai, but at the same time I'm afraid to be in a small cabin on a Ferris wheel at the height of say 10 meters, or in the open cockpit of a hot air balloon. That can be sound weird, but here I am. Or for example, to fly in an airplane. I absolutely not afraid to fly, seeing the heights in the window, but so I guess it's kind of open spaces for me with this phobia. Well, anyway, speaking of the abandoned lakes, I also remember there was one moment when I got there after my usual Friday walk to this lake, and there was a guy with his dog, and he kind of was scared of me, and then he approached to me very being kind of a very scared, and he's like, "Hey, are you lost? Are you okay? Do you need help?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm fine, I'm okay." Imagine it's about 6 or 7 p.m. It's quite dark, it's October on the lake, and I was like, "Oh no, I'm fine, I'm good, I'm fine." He thought that I maybe kind of a from kind of a religious group, or maybe for here for some rituals. It was kind of funny, but his dog was kind of very friendly to me. She licked my hands, she smells my legs, and she tries to befriend. She befriended with me, and kind of I don't know, maybe help me get out from the forest as well. It was fun. It was a very fun moment, but at the same time, it ruined my calmness. Anyway, we have the next track now. And it's strange. It's a Sparks. This track called Sparks. Track with vocals by Annelie Drecker. And it's a bit strange for me because it is the last track on the album. Eventually. But the original album on CD ends with the instrumental track 40 Years Back /Come, which is a 40-minute journey. And I wonder why it's not on the record. Technically failed to do so. Strange. But it seems that there is still room on the record, or someone decided that this track should be excluded, should not be included. I don't know. Very strange. Okay, well, let's get back to the track Sparks, a very beautiful and calm track. It also made, in my opinion, the best remixes from the single of that period. period. Once I read a critical review of an album from some foreign magazine, I think it was a Pitchfork, but I'm not sure. And there, the journalist compares this track with the work of Portishead, but lighter and happier, with which I fully agree. This is the light music, but with a touch of sadness and melancholy, and some nostalgia. And even on the cover of the album, you see the sky, the evening sky, glowing from the setting sun, I guess. The tops of the trees, and that same transitional moment from the day and its bustle to the evening, when the sounds subside, when the night comes and all its romance. On this album as a whole, only Royksopp's Night Out track sounds disturbing and gloomy. The more or less danceable and driving track is Porlino, and the rest of the album is more calm and beautiful, relaxed and narrative. And you seem to be looking at this evening sky at this moment while listening. Or maybe it's the early morning sky, the play of clouds, wind, and the top of trees as eternal observers of your passions, your life episodes. I would like to draw your attention to the version of this track in the 2006 album Royksopp's Night Out Live. This is a live album recorded in the autumn of 2005 in Oslo. Their sparks start slowly, beautifully, but then in the second half we get an incredible drive. The mood changes, the songs become pulsating. It's incredibly cool, two diametrical moods in one track. I really like to listen to it loud. It's noisy, driven, dancing, great emotions. But I also love the original version, which can be heard in the background. Actually, like the whole album, it seems to sound understandable, but at the same time very non-standard. It entices and fascinates you without causing heavy emotions. Royksopp's next album, The Understanding, in 2005, will be much sharper, more aggressive, more rhythmic, more dramatic, and I guess completely different from the debut album, which was a bit of a I don't know. A bit of a shock, in a less way, a bit of a shock for me when I heard it. This album, of course, unique in its own way. On the other hand, I thought if you have such a calm album, then what will you offer at your concerts? People need to be offered something more energetic, otherwise they will fall asleep, I guess. We need to steer them up somehow and cheer them up, I mean the public. But Royksopp does a great job with it, turning their slow tracks into fast ones, as well as playing remixes of other artists' tracks and covers, and making some covers. Yes, Royksopp, in addition to their own albums, also remixes other artists, and they have a huge catalog of it. Or they play tracks that didn't end up on the album at all. And it's a funny story among fans to find out that these tracks are called. And even, I guess, in 2015 or 2017, they released the album The Lost Tapes, which contains a lot of those lost tracks that could be played during their tours but never been released officially. Well, so the Sparks track is over, and so is the album, I guess. So today's podcast comes to an end. Thank you for listening to this album with me. I shared my thoughts and knowledge about this album with you. Perhaps you learned something new about the album and the band. Or maybe you just have a good time during those 40 minutes. I turned on the album itself quietly in the background so that it did not overlap with my voice. And you can turn on the album in the parallel with my podcast to listen to all the tracks in the full. Anyway, in any case, I will be glad that you paid your attention. This was Sanches Talks podcast, and thank you all for your attention, and see you soon in the next episode. Bye!